Hello and welcome to The Sensible Witch. I'm Julie and this is a channel where we talk about common sense witchcraft. Today we're going to talk about fire safety. As I mentioned to you guys before, I am definitely a fire hazard witch. I have had several fires get out of control on me. So I'm going to tell y'all what I did wrong so you won't make the same mistakes. A lot of this is common sense, but some of it kind of surprised me. And I'll tell you kind of as we get toward the end some of my experiences. But so if you like to use fire in your witchcraft, I know not everybody does, but almost every single spell I use a candle. At least one candle, sometimes more. But more candles means more fire. So you definitely have to be safe. So the first rule about fire safety, which I'm sure everybody knows, is never leave candles unattended. And to me, that means, don't leave your candles burning and leave your house. But I left a candle up on my goddess altar one time, and I had bought some new candles for my goddess and had lit a candle for an offering for her. And major brain fart there. Okay. And I didn't realize how fast the candles burned. And I was in here, I was sitting on the couch, and I smelled something, and I looked up, and the candle was gone, and the altar cloth was burning. So the candle had burned out a lot quicker than I anticipated and burned a big hole in the altar cloth. I'm sure my goddess wasn't thrilled about that. I wasn't thrilled about that. I had found the perfect silk altar cloth. It was beautiful, beautiful red. And when I went to buy another one like it on Etsy, it was gone, and I had to get one that I wasn't as happy with. And so I wasn't thrilled about that. So even if you are in the same room, make sure you're keeping an eye on your candles. And a lot of these happened while I was in the room, y'all. So again, you have to keep a good watch on these things when they're burning. The second one, obviously, is to use fireproof containers. Cast iron or metal are usually pretty safe. I do use some glass and porcelain. A lot of candles come in glass, but glass can shatter. And I see a lot of things online, which is saying, oh, this glass candle holder shattered. What does that mean for my spell? Well, that probably means that the glass just shattered. So you want to make sure that you're using the right type of materials, especially if you have a hotter fire going on with several candles, like I'll explain a little bit later. I saw also that you should avoid quartz countertops. They can melt or scorch, and I know quartz countertops are expensive, so you don't want to be messing those up. So I wouldn't put any candles up there. Also, you want to clear the space out. When I do my workings, I showed you guys my temporary altar, and I'll either set it up on the floor or I'll set it up on the table that I'm using right now. But when I'm finished with my working and the candles are still burning down, I will take my candles and go ahead and put them up on my fireplace mantle, which is behind me. Obviously, make a hole. I don't put them I actually put them on the other side. But I clear a space so that there's nothing flammable around the candle and it can burn down safely up there. Mostly, again, I've had some fires get out of control up there, but I've sometimes had to grab a pot holder and take them over to the stove and slide the top on the cauldron to put the fire out. So just keep a close eye on things. And again, the next one, very obvious, but keep candles away from pets. Cats especially, which I have. I currently have 2 cats now. I'll know I lost my Kendra. But I have 2 cats. My boys are just crazy. and they're running around the house. They jump up on everything. Almost nowhere is safe from the cats, except for the mantle. They don't get up there. So that's why I put the candles up there. But before I do any workings, I lock the boys away in another room, because, you know, they can brush their tail through your candle. They can knock it over. And then your cat's on fire, running around your house, catching your house on fire. So that's definitely not a situation that you want to find yourself in. So keep candles away from pets. Make sure your wicks are trimmed properly. The ideal for length for a candle wick is about 1/4 of an inch. So if your candle is burned down, if your wick is way longer, or sometimes if you get a new candle, comes with this, you know, wicks attached to 2 candles, you want to trim those down so the fire is just not burning crazy and the wicks whipping around. That's not cool. So make sure those wicks are trimmed up, and you can just use regular scissors to do that, y'all. You don't need a wick tool. In my experience, I found that they haven't worked all that well anyway. I find a sharp pair of scissors works just fine. So using crystals, if crystals are a part of your spell, I will typically put the crystal near whatever is burning, but I don't want to put it up against like a cauldron or the candle holder, because those can get really hot and then your crystals can crack, they can shatter, and they can send little crystal pieces around the room in your eye, and you're stepping on that stuff. You don't want to do that. So keep your crystals separate from your fire. Also, a little fire safety tip about crystal balls. If you have a crystal ball, which I have one of, y'all always cover these things up, because if the sun comes through the window and shines into your crystal ball, then it can create a laser focused beam of heat that can set something near your crystal ball on fire. People have burned their houses down by leaving crystal balls uncovered. So make sure, absolutely sure, those crystal balls are put away and covered up. Mine is in a box, but I wrap it in a cloth before I put it in the box. Then I put it away so I know that the sun is not going to hit that thing under any circumstance. So be very, very careful with those things. Also, and I've mentioned this in another video, when I'm working with petitions or sigils that I'm burning and I'm going to drop it in a cauldron, I always use tongs. I put the paper in the tongs, I hold the paper with the tongs, then I light it on fire I use a long lighter. Usually I have some short ones, but I usually use a long lighter. Light that thing and then use the tongs to drop it into the cauldron. Because if you're holding it with your fingers, sometimes that paper can burn quicker than you imagine. Or even if the paper doesn't burn, the flame can kind of curl up and hit you in the fingers, and you don't want that to happen. So always use tongs, y'all. And you can get tongs at the dollar store. They're very, very cheap. There's no sense in buying really expensive witchy tongs. Just get yourself a pair of tongs from the dollar store. You can use those. It's fine. So a couple of things have happened to me. I think I skipped one here. Yeah. You want to keep your herbs and your oils to a minimum. I typically dress my candles with herbs and oil. And I haven't had a problem when I just simply dress the candles. However, every time I do a memorial service for one of my pets, I have a fire that goes out of control, and I'll tell you what happened. The very first time I did one, I had put 3 candles together, and I was trying to get the candles to stick together, and they just wouldn't stick together no matter what I did. I said, well, I'm going to go get some craft sand, which I have in the other room. I have tons of craft supplies because I'm a crafter. I got some craft sand. I poured it into my glass container, which probably wasn't a good idea, and I plunked all 3 candles into the sand and I lit them. And if you put 3 candles together, the wicks will come together, and you'll have a huge flame on the top of this thing. It burns great. But when it burned down to the bottom, y'all, I did not know that sand was flammable. Apparently sand is flammable. So my sand caught on fire. So I've got this little glass bowl with this sand and a fire in it. So I took a little candle snuffer and I was snuffing out all of it. It took me a while to get the fire out. But I eventually got the fire out. So that was the first and last time I've ever used sand in a fire spell. So don't use sand because it's flammable. And then the third time that I did a ritual for a pet that I lost when I lost my kindred just recently. And again, I was grief-stricken. I wasn't thinking all that well. So I had a couple candles array. I think I had 2 candles this time, and I tied them together with some twine. And I stuck them in one of the little tiny cauldrons that I have. And I had finished the spell. Oh, and I put a bunch of herbs. I put the herbs and the ingredients that I used for the spell. I kind of put them around the candles in the cauldron. Again, not a good idea, y'all, because I had set it up on the mantle to finish burning. And the candles had burned away completely. And I thought that the spell was over. And again, this is the second time this happened to me. I was sitting on the couch and all of a sudden I smelled something burning. And I look up the cauldron and there's a flame this high coming out of the cauldron. And I'm thinking, what on earth is burning? The candles are gone. Well, the herbs caught on fire, y'all, and they were burning crazy and they smelled terrible. I had this stench in my house. The smoke I'm surprised the smoke alarm didn't go off, frankly. So I had to use a lid to put out the fire. My cauldrons have these little cast iron cauldrons, and they have little cast iron lids that go with them. And I just slide the lid on there, and it puts the fire out. And I had another spell I was doing a love spell for 2 of my cats, y'all. I was trying to get them to get along better, and I did this spell, and the same thing happened to me. I had put the 2 candles together in the little cauldron, and after the candles had burned down, I looked up there and this flame was leaping out of the cauldron. I don't know what was burning because the candles were gone. And I didn't use herbs in that particular spell. So I don't know what happened, if some of the oil came down off the candles. But just use a little bit of oil if you put it on your candles and a little bit of herbs. And then hopefully you'll be all right. But keep an eye on everything. I also have a spot in my kitchen windowsill where I keep a candle and a candle holder, and I'll light a candle. If somebody makes a request, will you light a candle for so-and-so? I light them in my kitchen window. The cats don't get up there as often, but they do, so I always keep a really close eye on that. And then, have all your fire safety stuff in place. If you do have a fire that gets out of control, don't use water on your fire. It's a good idea to have a fire extinguisher in your house, which I do. I keep a fire extinguisher in my kitchen. But in addition to that, I've never had to use a fire extinguisher in my house. And if you've ever used a fire extinguisher, y'all, they make a horrible mess. Stuff just goes everywhere. It's, and then you have these nasty chemicals, and then you've got this chemical mess that you've got to clean up and all that. So I saw these online, and the firefighters that I know all have these. So I ordered myself one of these. It's a fire blanket. I hang it up, again, close to my kitchen because that's normally where my fires start. Although my witchy fires start in the living room. I have had kitchen. I've never had a kitchen fire. I had kitchen smoke. But get yourself one of these blankets. You just pull on the bottom, the blanket comes out. You spread the blanket out, you lay it over the fire goes out. No mess, no nothing. These are fantastic. So I highly recommend you have at least one of these in your home for any type of fire, as well as I have an extinguisher. In case I need it, I have it. Hopefully I'll never have to use it and make a big mess, but this will put the fire out and it won't make as big a mess. Now, if your whole room is on fire, you're not going to be able to put it out with a blanket. So in that case, call 911. Best of luck to you. But so those are the mistakes that I've made with fire. So please don't make the same mistakes I did. I'm sure I'll do something stupid like that again because I never learn. But I do make an effort to have some sort of fire safety, but something's always going wrong. And I see a lot of stuff online too about, oh, this fire got out of control. What does that mean? It means you didn't keep an eye on your candles and your fire got out of control. So not everything has a magical meaning. And if your glass candle holder explodes, it's probably just mundane. It got too hot and it exploded. So I would love to hear about your experiences, especially if they're anything like mine. Hopefully you stayed safe and didn't burn your house down. But if you had an experience or have a fire safety tip that I haven't talked about, please drop it in the comments below. Love to hear about your experiences. Also, please give me a like and subscribe. If you hit the notification bell, you'll be notified anytime there's a new video out. I usually post every week. I did miss 2 weeks ago because I was very, very sick. I was actually sick for 2 weeks, but I managed to get another video in there. Also, you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. Links are below. I'll also link my Etsy shop in the description box below. So that's everything I have about fire safety. Stay safe out there, y'all. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.